I left home after my dad confronted me about smoking and physically attacked me. Now, I took him hiding in a stranger's building, lost. Optional backstory. Not today, but about a week ago, I somewhat ran away from home. I, 15 years old, female, used to live with my father, stepmother, and sister. Previously, I lived with my mother, but I moved to stay with my father a little over 3 years ago for various reasons. It is safe to say that I do not have a typically healthy family dynamic, but the issues are not extremely serious, even though there have been several major occurrences and situations. I chose to live with my father because my mother has her own personal struggles and healing processes to navigate. Unfortunately, she has not resolved these issues, making it incredibly challenging to live with her. Coexisting feels like navigating a field of eggshells. She has said and done things to both my sister and me that I will never forgive her for, and I will never view or respect her the same way again. Living in a toxic environment has negatively impacted me in numerous ways, particularly in terms of how I interact with others, especially my father. When I moved in with my dad, it was the first time I lived with him instead of just visiting, and it felt like getting to know a new parent. There were aspects my mother would dislike that my dad felt entirely oppositely about. This has resulted in many disagreements and tensions between us because I had become so used to dealing with my dad as I would with my mom. It is more complicated than it seems, but our constant inability to agree has led to increased distance over the months. This has been the situation for a while now, and recently, things have come to a standstill. He ceased yelling at me and lecturing me, essentially giving up on trying to communicate. I had long given up before he did, so while things may have grown awkward, at least they were peaceful. Main story. Essentially, my dad has accused me of smoking on numerous occasions, and I have always denied it or remained silent. He first accused me of vaping, which I used to do regularly, but now I no longer partake. I don't consider myself a vapor any longer. He claimed he smelled smoke on me. When I explained to him that you can't smell smoke from a vape, he insisted that he knew I was doing it regardless. He then added marijuana to the mix. While I did, in fact, engage in everything he accused me of, he never had any real proof other than what he claimed to have smelled. I typically use pens to smoke, but when I do roll spliffs, I am very careful about my scent, although I may have slipped up once or twice. Thus, I consistently denied it or remained silent. Last week, I skipped class and my dad received a call informing him of my absence. He takes this matter seriously, so he was understandably angry. He called me out of my room and told me he was aware of my actions. He then ordered me to take out the trash, which I complied with. However, when I returned inside, he started yelling at me and asked, "What is this?" He held in his hand a pouch where I kept my lighters, rolling papers, marijuana, and other items. He essentially rummaged through my backpack while I was away. He started pushing me and hitting me. This was not the first, second, or even fifth time he had laid his hands on me, so I was somewhat accustomed to it. I'm not going to claim that he abuses me because he was right. I should not be smoking. I am aware of this, but it was something I was willing to accept consequences for if I ever got caught, which I did. However, this time felt different for me, as I had resolved both to tell him and to myself that he would not touch me again. The last time I expressed that sentiment, I am unsure if he took me seriously, but I was genuinely serious this time. As soon as he noticed that I was enduring his punches with minimal response, I was defensively covering my face and head. He rushed into the laundry room and retrieved a broomstick. Though not the first time he had struck me with an object, it was the first time it was with a broomstick. My stepmother attempted to intervene, but he was not receptive. While he was yelling, I dashed into the kitchen and grabbed a kitchen knife. I cannot accurately describe what I was thinking, but I was frightened and wanted to avoid being hit with a wooden stick. I had no intention of actually using it, even if I could, but he certainly did not appreciate that. It only escalated the situation further. He struck me with the broom until it shattered into pieces, and afterward, he grabbed another object to continue hitting me. He threatened to break my jaw and insisted I should find my mother and go live with her. He was clearly saying this partly out of frustration. He dislikes my mom and does not want me to be with her, but deep down, there was a degree of truth to it. Regardless, I was already aware that if he hit me again, I would leave. Although the reason for his hitting me this time was far more justified than previous instances, I was not willing to endure it any longer. I have significant bruises scattered across my legs and arms, and my ring finger is swollen and immobile. Consequently, I packed 2 bags and left early in the morning, pretending I was going to school. I walked until I discovered a random apartment building. A stranger kindly let me in. I went to the top floor and left my belongings near the door to the roof. I have remained there ever since, and I am uncertain of what to do next. I realize I should not have just stayed, but I feel no remorse for my choice. While I do not regret leaving, I find myself at a loss regarding my next steps. I cannot return because things would only be worse than when I left. Sleeping is challenging. Even though I am not outside in the cold, I am still resting on stairs. I spent one night at a friend's house and took a shower there, but I lack certainty about when I can do that again. I left my phone behind because my dad could track my location. The parental controls do not allow me to disable it. Currently, I only have my computer and must wait until I reach a location with Wi-Fi if I need it. I went to school one day, but spotted my dad's car parked out front before I even walked in. So I ran and caught the bus before he could see me. Thus, I cannot even return there. I have only a small amount of money, which I use to buy food and bus fare when necessary. I have met up with friends, which I must admit is enjoyable since I have no curfew or restrictions. However, I am uncertain how long I can continue this way. I cannot go back. I swear it is worse for me than it may seem. Any advice or suggestions would be greatly appreciated. I am unsure if I should reach out to my mother. I do not even know her whereabouts, as we have not communicated in any form since I left. She might inform my dad to come pick me up if I do. I also want to text my sister because I know she is worried. I did not inform her of my departure since she might have alerted my dad. But what if she shows him my message? I do not know what actions to take next. It may have been a foolish decision, but I genuinely feel it was the right choice. Brief summary. My father discovered that I was smoking and hit me, leading me to leave home, and now I am uncertain about what to do next. Story 2. I liked a popular girl in college. We connected online, but in person, she barely acknowledged me. Then, she blocked me after I distanced myself. So this occurred over several years, and even now, I still do not completely comprehend what transpired. I would appreciate hearing your insights because, to this day, I cannot ascertain what she truly desired from me. How it began during my pre-university college days, there was a girl whom I really admired. She was not just any girl. She possessed a charismatic, self-assured demeanor that drew people to her. She dressed well, was outspoken, and was selective about her interactions. She primarily associated with the popular, well-groomed, cool guys, those who possessed effortless charm, wealth, or social standing. I was not like that. I was simply an average guy, decent, friendly, and introverted. Yet, despite recognizing that I did not fit her ideal, I still found myself attracted to her. Not merely in a romantic sense. I genuinely wished to grow close to her, to become part of her circle, to be her best friend. This is where things began to get peculiar. Rumors and the Instagram request. At some point, rumors circulated that I had feelings for her. I never disclosed anything openly, but word got around. You know how college gossip works. Someone notices you glancing at someone for a little too long. Another person overhears an offhand comment, and suddenly it escalates into a widespread rumor. I am uncertain if she ever directly caught wind of these rumors, but given her popularity, I am quite sure she did. After our first semester, I sent her a follow request on Instagram. She accepted, which gave me a flicker of hope. However, I quickly observed something odd. She never followed me back. That should have been my first indication, right? That she was not genuinely interested in me, even as a friend? Yet at the time, I overlooked it. I simply wanted to communicate with her, and this seemed like my opportunity. Online, we were close. In college, we were strangers. Thus began our conversations through direct messages. And online, it felt as if we were best friends. We conversed for hours. We shared jokes, exchanged profound thoughts about life, and discussed our futures. She offered me advice, checked in on my well-being, and always appeared sincerely concerned about me. She was not just a superficial, attention-seeking individual, at least not in our private discussions. She exhibited a kind and compassionate nature. She made me feel significant. But this is where it becomes perplexing. In college, we hardly spoke. I was too timid to approach her. As for her, she made no effort either. It was as though we inhabited two completely distinct realms, one where we enjoyed a close connection online, and the other where she barely acknowledged my presence in person. Her close friends, on the contrary, were very amiable toward me. They engaged with me, joked around, and treated me well. But with her, it was a different story. She kept me at arm's length almost as if she wanted to prevent others from knowing about our extensive private conversations. I tried not to dwell on it too much. After all, some individuals behave differently online, right? Then came the final examinations and summer break. Summer break, when we became best friends, or so I thought. During the summer, we began texting each other daily. Not merely small talk, I mean profound, late-night discussions about life, emotions, dreams, and fears. She confided in me about things she had never shared with anyone else. She was incredibly nurturing and supportive, always making sure I was doing well. For the first time, I felt she truly valued our friendship. But then, when college resumed, everything unraveled. The secret that altered everything: one day, a friend casually mentioned something that shocked me. She had been in a relationship during pre-university college. Not only that, she had just recently broken up. And the guy, he was from my class. Initially, I found it hard to believe. It felt surreal. However, after inquiring and confirming it through multiple sources, I realized it was indeed true. Her ex was affluent, attractive, stylishly dressed, and had a reputation as a playboy. Exactly the type of guy she typically surrounded herself with, and the most painful part, she never informed me. We had delved into so many deep subjects: our lives, our struggles, our thoughts, but she never once mentioned that she had a boyfriend. That revelation struck me hard. I began to pull away. I texted her less frequently. I ceased interacting with her at college. I gradually distanced myself. No arguments, no drama, just a quiet withdrawal. And then, things took an unusual turn. The stalking, the mind games. After my withdrawal, she began to stalk me. She would suddenly appear near me on campus. In places where I typically gathered, she would just show up. Sometimes I'd catch her gazing at me from afar. Even my friends remarked on it. Was it guilt? Regret? Or was she merely playing games? One day she was reprimanded by the principal and was quite upset. She texted me, and I felt compelled to comfort her. However, I still maintained my distance afterward. A few days later, without any warning, she sent me a message. I was someone else's girlfriend before. It seemed as though she was attempting to confess something, yet I responded as if it was normal, like I was indifferent. That same evening, she shared a somber, black and white Instagram story, but she concealed it from me. A friend showed it to me, prompting me to contemplate: did she actually have feelings for me? Was she feeling guilty? Then, abruptly, she blocked me. No explanation, no reason, just vanished. I didn't even inquire why, I simply let it go. The jealousy, her dark side. Months later, a significant college event occurred. And guess what? She took very intimate pictures with her ex, the same guy she had broken up with. That day, my heart shattered. My friends suggested she was doing it intentionally to provoke jealousy. Perhaps they were correct. Following that, she went out of her way to flaunt in front of me, laughing more boisterously, standing closer to other guys, making it painfully obvious. She wanted me to suffer. I had glimpsed her kind, caring nature. But this was cruel. Final confrontation. Moving on, pre-university college concluded, and I enrolled in a different institution. A fresh start. But guess what? She enrolled in the same college, same class. Initially, she simply glared at me with hostility, as if plotting revenge. One day, I confronted her and stated, "I have never spoken ill of you or done anything wrong." She replied, "People are observing, we will discuss this later." I responded, "I don't need to talk, I just wanted to convey the truth." After that, she ceased her jealous antics. Instead, she stood near me, gazing at me as if she had something to express, but I ignored her. By the final year, she was involved in a secret relationship with someone else. And that was that. Even now, I continue to wonder, did she ever genuinely like me? Was she simply playing games? Was she feeling remorseful? Or was she just toying with my emotions? I would love to hear your thoughts. Story 3. I confronted my brother over his disrespect. Shockingly, he claimed his girlfriend liked me, which I found hard to believe. Chaos ensued. I am a 20-year-old female, and my brother is a 22-year-old male. We still reside with our parents, which some of our friends find slightly embarrassing. To provide some background, I grew up in a traditional Mexican household, and my brother was diagnosed with autism at a very early age. From the time I could understand what autism meant, my mother emphasized that my brother would face greater challenges in life than I would and would often be bullied, so it was crucial for me to be kind and patient with him. However, during our middle school years, my brother and I began to drift apart and even developed a sort of sibling rivalry. We would have frequent fights, engage in loud arguments, and sometimes go days without speaking. I became increasingly aggressive toward him, especially after he started teasing me at school, publicly calling me names like loser in front of his friends. Over the years, we have moved past much of that tension. We still argue occasionally, but not to the same extent. Recently, my brother began dating Jewel, a 21-year-old girl whom he has known since middle school and whom our parents have never been fond of. Jewel exhibits passive-aggressive behavior, is often rude, and has hurt my brother numerous times, causing him to cry alone in his room for days. Shortly thereafter, she would claim, "Oh, my bad, let's be friends again." Her demeanor toward me is equally unpleasant. Although we share many interests, I have made several attempts to connect with her, such as enthusiastically saying, "Oh, you like insert interest, I do too." Yet she would respond, "You like that? Okay," while giving me a dismissive side eye. It's safe to say that I do not like her, but I would never express this to my brother or Jewel directly. In contrast, my parents openly express their disdain for her, frequently speaking negatively about her in front of my brother, despite knowing it upsets him. Last year, I started dating my partner, Leo, who is 20 years old, and he and my brother have developed a wonderful friendship. Whenever Leo visits, they enjoy playing video games together, discussing Marvel, and genuinely bonding as friends. Now that you have the context, here's what triggered our argument today. I am very passionate about theater and am currently pursuing a degree in it. I have visited New York several times and adore everything related to musicals. My favorite musical is The Phantom of the Opera, which I have seen live 10 times in various locations across the United States and once in London. I was very excitedly sharing with my mom that it had just been announced that Phantom would be touring next year with a stop in Los Angeles, where we live. My brother then casually walked in and dismissively exclaimed, "Nobody cares." I responded, "I wasn't speaking to you." My mother scolded me, stating I was being disrespectful to my brother. I clarified that I was merely expressing my truth to him and pointed out, not wanting to treat him like a child, that he had instigated this situation. My mom seemed confused, realizing she hadn't heard what my brother had said, and after I explained that he had told me nobody cared, she insisted that I still needed to be respectful toward him. My mother then emphasized that I must show respect to my brother, especially since she didn't want me acting disrespectfully if Jewel came over. Briefly glancing at my brother, she added that he also needed to be respectful toward me when Leo was present. The atmosphere shifted immediately, and I eagerly informed my brother, "Leo thinks very highly of you. He frequently mentions how sweet and cool you are and looks forward to chatting with you." My brother excitedly rambled about how pleased he was to hear that and mentioned that he cared for Leo as well, before saying, "Jewel likes you too." I was taken aback for a moment. As I noted earlier, any time I had attempted to engage with her, she had shut me down. I chuckled and replied, "No, she doesn't." But my brother insisted, saying, "Yes, she does. She says you have a lot in common." I reiterated, still in disbelief, "She does not like me." My brother responded, "People can change, you know. She disliked you in middle school, but that was years ago." The issues I described occurred less than a year ago, and I didn't even interact with her in middle school, leaving me puzzled as to why she would have disliked me at that time. Still in disbelief, I stated, "There is no way she likes me." This ignited my brother, who then loudly stated, "Oh, so you hate her?" Even more astonished, I yelled, "I never said that, I just believe she does not like me." He began to pace around the kitchen, loudly repeating, "Yep, you hate Jewel." I continued to assert that I had never said that and would never say such a thing in front of him. Eventually, after several minutes of him insisting that I hated Jewel, I finally snapped and shouted, "I never said that." Given my family's traditional values, they witnessed the entire exchange. As a result, I faced repercussions for my profanity, while my brother retreated to his room without facing any consequences. My mother reprimanded me, stating I had been entirely disrespectful. I tried to explain my side, indicating that I understood that swearing at him was inappropriate, but that he had instigated the situation. I told her, "He is accusing me of saying something I never said." My mom responded, "But you do hate her." I clarified that while I disliked her, I would never express that to my brother and pointed out that she had said far worse things about her to him than I ever have. She brushed this off and insisted that I had been disrespectful from the outset when I told my brother I was not speaking to him. At this point, I felt tears of frustration welling up. Back in middle school, there were occasions when I said, "Nobody cares" to my brother and received a slap across the face or was reprimanded for it. Yet my brother simply got to walk away without any repercussions. I remarked, "If I had said that to him just now, you would not have been as understanding with me." My mother fell silent, and then my dad chimed in, laughing and saying I was crying for no reason. His laughter only intensified my frustration, so I attempted to explain the situation to him, hoping he might see my perspective, but he continued to laugh and said it wasn't a big deal. I acknowledged that it wasn't, but I expressed that while I was excitedly sharing my interest with my mother, he intervened by stating he didn't care. He also accused me of saying something I never claimed, yet I was the one facing punishment. My parents then deemed me dramatic for feeling upset about the situation, and I simply nodded and replied, "Okay." Before heading upstairs, my mother reiterated that I needed to stop being disrespectful and learn to be kinder to my brother. I quietly said, "Okay" once more and retired to my room, where I am now writing this. I am uncertain if my behavior was indeed disrespectful. Perhaps it was, but I would like to hear others' opinions on the matter. Story 4. I, 18F, hid a secret from my protective BF, 19M, but I don't know if he's overreacting or if I took him the a hole. For some context, my boyfriend is not exactly my boyfriend. Although we both have romantic feelings for each other, we have mutually decided to wait until marriage for everything, including the use of any title other than friends. So, technically, we are friends, even though he treats me like his girlfriend. He often asks me to limit my conversations with my male friends if possible, and inquires about my whereabouts and who I am with when I go out. Due to his work and family circumstances, he is currently abroad for a while, which creates a long-distance relationship for us. I have seldom had any issues with his behavior towards me. He is very affectionate and has consistently shown loyalty. He rarely exhibits signs of neglect, if any at all. However, the downside is that he tends to be somewhat controlling and quite sensitive. If he repeats a question while I am busy and I raise my voice or sound slightly annoyed, he withdraws and remains silent until I speak to him again. Additionally, when a casual conversation turns into a debate, he becomes teary-eyed, making it difficult for me to resolve the matter, as anything I say might send him into tears. He also insists on knowing all the details about what I am doing. For instance, if I mention that I will call him back in 5 minutes, he will ask what I am doing, who I am with, and why I cannot do it on the phone with him instead. To maintain anonymity, I will refer to him as Noah. In the past month or so, I have been calling Noah less often due to school assignments and the time I spent abroad visiting my family. This upset him significantly, given his strong attachment to me. He repeatedly expressed that he would struggle to cope during the week I was away because he would miss me too much. Initially, I found this quite sweet. However, on the night before I left, when he had promised weeks in advance to stay on the call with me, he excused himself after about an hour, claiming he was tired, and then said goodnight. I ended up waiting alone for the next 4 hours, torn between his desperation to stay connected and his early departure. While I was abroad, I informed him that I could not call, which disappointed him. However, there was one day when I managed to call, but just a few minutes into our conversation, my connection failed. Moments later, when I tried to text him that I could call again, I saw he had already sent a message saying he was tired and wanted to take a nap. This hurt me because he had been so vocal about how much he missed me, yet during the one time I was available to talk, he was sleepy. There were many small but noticeable changes in his behavior during that time, leading me to reevaluate my feelings for him. Shortly after I returned, one of my male friends, let's call him Mike, texted me to inquire about my trip, asking how it went. I shared the spectacular views I had while abroad, and he suggested a quiet spot in our local shopping center to enjoy the scenery there as well. I went to that place soon after and sent him a picture of the surprisingly good view. When he learned I was at the shopping center, he told me he would come to meet me. When we met, it was awkward for the first 20 minutes since we were only acquaintances from college and were not particularly close. However, the silence gradually dissipated. He bought me his favorite drink and asked me to rate it, and for about 4 hours, we wandered around the shopping center. I stopped in a few shops to buy some items while he accompanied me. He bought sour candies, and we dared each other to eat several at once, though he humorously failed. Then he suggested another location with a better view, and I followed him. We ended up in an empty parking lot where he spotted a vacant shopping cart. He encouraged me to sit in it, hesitating at first due to fear, but eventually agreeing. He pushed me around the parking area as I held on tightly, laughing and gasping for breath simultaneously. He raced around until he was exhausted, at which point I suggested he try the cart while I pushed him. I didn't achieve his speed, but I gained some momentum. He kept laughing and asked me to perform tricks with the cart, like drifting or reversing into a parking space. We played around until the sun began to set, and we both moved to a ledge of the parking lot overlooking the shopping center. In a peaceful silence, we admired the view, which felt oddly comforting, and he shared a bit about his home life abroad. Eventually, we made our way back to the shopping center as night fell, and he walked me to my bus stop before saying goodbye. I must admit it was one of the most enjoyable times I've had with a friend. That evening, when I called Noah, I hesitated when he asked whom I had gone out with, knowing he was aware I had been offline. I refrained from mentioning Mike's name because I was sure it would not be well received by Noah. I didn't want to jeopardize my connection with Noah over just one day out with Mike, so I lied and said I had been with a female friend, when he knew. He accepted my answer, and I recounted the story while altering the name of the person involved. I described racing around in shopping carts and watching the sunset with my friend, and he went along with it. To be completely honest, I still feel guilty about this deception, but I can't bring myself to tell him now, as it has been a month since then. This wasn't the only time I went out with Mike. The week following our first outing, he texted me, asking if I wanted to go out again, but this time with advance notice. It wasn't a date. It was just another casual outing similar to the first where we could talk and act playful. We met again at the shopping center, and as before, the initial awkwardness faded over time. This time, we spent more of the evening racing in the shopping carts together. He pushed me around much more than I did with him, leaving him breathless for a good 10 minutes. We eventually sat on the stairs, catching our breaths, trying not to laugh. Later, as we walked around the shopping center, one of my college friends spotted us and excitedly pulled me aside, squealing about her excitement to be the first to know that Mike and I were dating. I clarified that we were not, at which point she rolled her eyes and playfully expressed disbelief that I would be interested in someone like Mike. I sighed in response. When I returned to Mike, we both wore expressions of defeat, aware that rumors would spread as soon as we returned to college. After that, we enjoyed the night view in silence for a moment before he walked me to my bus stop again. This time, he remained with me until my bus arrived before saying goodbye. That evening, when Noah called again, I refrained from mentioning Mike's name and instead said it was the same female friend as before. Fast forward a week or two, and I have not gone out with Mike again, but I still haven't come clean to Noah about it. I feel terrible for lying, but technically, he and I are not in a relationship, and nothing inappropriate or romantic transpired between Mike and me. Am I the villain for lying about it? Or am I justified in my actions due to Noah's sensitive nature? Story 5. I, 23M, am apprehensive about resuming normal dating after a fight with my girlfriend, 21F. How do I proceed forward? Hello, everyone. I am a 23-year-old male currently in a 1.5-year relationship with my girlfriend, who is 21 years old. Recently, we have encountered some challenges. Without going into too much detail, we initially started a long-distance relationship when I went to study abroad after our summer job together concluded. We maintained this long-distance arrangement until we both graduated from college and returned home. However, most of the conflicts began when I secured a job. Although I will not disclose the specifics, it required training out of state and would ultimately place me in a different city. From that point on, I noticed several things that began to worry me and others that increasingly annoyed me. I admit that I did not do an adequate job of expressing my feelings as they arose. While in the other state, I started training for the job, which demanded longer hours and time outside of school to master the subject matter. Conversely, she sought employment, but was reluctant to apply for, or accept, certain positions because she held a college degree. Although we were not financially struggling at the time, this situation caused her to remain at home, brooding over her emotions all day, which I then had to navigate when I returned. The apartment was furnished by the company, and I received a stipend for food that covered both of us. Additionally, she was hesitant to engage in any activities on her own due to perceived dangers or concerns about being alone. More significantly, she faced issues that made it difficult for me to feel comfortable in the apartment we shared. I understand we need to agree upon certain boundaries, but if I did not adhere to specific routines or behaviors, it would upset her greatly, and I had to cope with that while she worked through her feelings. It often felt like walking on eggshells. Other troubling behaviors included instances where she called me cheap for not wanting to do certain activities or for not leaving my car running idly while we searched for things to do, despite my carrying most of the financial burden so she could reduce her college debt, which she did not. On several occasions, she expressed that it was unfair that I had secured employment while she had not. She believed that having a college degree entitled her to a job waiting for her. While I understand her frustration, I know that is not how the world operates. Moreover, it diminished my achievements and hard work in her eyes. I take pride in my current situation and the efforts I have made, but her comments did hurt my feelings. Due to these issues, along with a few minor ones, I had a discussion with her about the possibility of creating some space to work on our problems. She would be able to stay at her parents' home to address the issues affecting her mental health and save money while I focused on advancing my training. This conversation was difficult for me because I am generally averse to confrontation, especially with someone who is emotional. It has been approximately 3 weeks since that conversation, during which I have begun my training, and according to her, she has started therapy for her issues. My current concern is that similar problems will arise. She is scheduled to visit me in the next few days, so I will see how I respond to that. However, over these 3 weeks, I have noticed a reduction in my worries and anxiety. With this upcoming visit and discussions about ending our long-distance arrangement, I find myself increasingly concerned. I continue to worry about potential mental health challenges and financial issues. Furthermore, my apartment is furnished in a particular way that she has mentioned wanting to change repeatedly. Although this is a minor detail, it reflects a larger theme. She has a vision for her life that she wants to pursue, and at times, it seems there is little room for me to live my life or chase my goals. I also feel pressured to cover more expenses since I have a secure job with a decent salary while she pursues further education. I am still contemplating an international job opportunity, which she has strongly disapproved of. Additionally, for the first time in my life, I feel a sense of independence, and I worry that this comfortable way of living may vanish because of the various issues I perceive. How can I improve my ability to communicate my thoughts, and are these concerns valid? Summary: my girlfriend wants to end our long-distance relationship, but I am uncertain if I am prepared for that, or if it is a wise decision given our relationship differences.